That'd be a crazy intro song. But good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening from. David, great to have you back on. Third
Great
time's a
here.
charm. We are here to talk about the launch of our newest AI service, and that is our AI Readiness Assessment.
Correct.
So before we dive into that, want to just catch up with you. We haven't talked in a month or two,
Yep.
I think. So wanted to touch base with you, see how everything's moving in the BI and dev department, and hear about your new hobby.
My new hobby. Okay,
Yes.
so in the BI department, we actually have a pretty exciting new development in the BI department. For those that have heard of it, we use something called Amazon QuickSight.
Yes.
And actually, technically, I think it's just called Quick now because they change names quite often.
That's pretty quick for QuickSight to go to Quick.
Yeah. So anyway, I had to do an update to a dashboard, and I realized that QuickSight has a feature that you can download a JSON file of a dashboard for like backup purposes.
Okay.
And then you can upload a JSON for a dashboard for like deployment purposes. So you want to deploy into a new environment. You don't have to rebuild your entire dashboard. You can download it and redeploy it. I realized that in between downloading it and uploading it, I could have something like Claude make changes to it. Mm-hmm. So basically now when we need to create a new dashboard, I don't do any of the work. I talk to Claude. I explain to him what I need. It. Sorry.
We're personalizing.
Yeah, quite a bit. So I talked to Claude and I have it build the JSON file from scratch. I built a project in Claude that has a couple of files in it that shows it how to build certain things. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if you want a bar chart, that translates into a piece of code that goes into the JSON file and how you want it formatted and the whole 9 yards. So I have built several dashboards now where I never actually touched the dashboard at all. It was have Claude build it, I would upload it, I would check it to make sure it was working and it was what I wanted, and then we would do the next thing, and then we would do the next thing. It usually takes, 20, 30 iterations, but
that's a lot of iterations.
It's also
prompts.
a lot faster. So we went from when we first moved to Quick or QuickSight, whatever you call it, it would take us about 6 weeks to knock out a dashboard.
One dashboard?
Yeah, and I can do it in a day.
That's insane.
I can do it in one workday now.
Was it all code back when it would take that
long?
long?
It was UI. So
Okay.
you had to drag this and then set this filter and
Yeah.
manually create this calculated field. And there was a lot of manual effort involved in that. And I can just bypass all that and have Claude just do it.
So you give it a template and just...
Yeah, it has, when you build a project in Claude, there's a section where you can upload documents or files as context. Mm-hmm. And so every time you're working within that project and then you have a conversation with Claude, it will reference those documents before it answers you.
Sweet.
So I took one of the dashboards that we'd previously built that I thought was our gold standard dashboard, downloaded the JSON file of it and gave it to Claude and said, here's how things should be formatted, here's what they should look like, here's the color scheme to use, et cetera, et cetera. And then from there it was just working with him. They, like for instance, they just had a new feature come out for sparklines. I don't know if you know what sparklines are.
I don't know what a sparkline is.
In a chart, a sparkline is like a line graph, but very small and kind of just centered on one specific thing. So if you have the number of visits to a particular store, you could create a little tiny spark line, and it just imagine you would have a number that says this is 100, and then you would have a spark line next to it that shows it going up over time or something like that. Anyway, Quick just now released it, not just now, but maybe a month ago, released the ability to have spark lines on things that you couldn't do before. Mm-hmm. And so it took Claude and I a couple of back and forths to figure out exactly what syntax AWS wanted us to use in that JSON file. So now it's just a matter of, keeping up to date on those things. Once we figured it out, I added the context to the project so that all future iterations, if I want a sparkline, he already knows how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sweet.
The more I use it, the better it will get over time. And I've even got it trained to ask specific questions. What is the point of this dashboard? Who's going to be looking at it? How often is the data refreshed? There's a lot of things that go in, like those kinds of things that go into a dashboard that typically you would have like like a data analyst do.
Yeah.
And I'm essentially training Claude to be our data analyst.
Nice.
And it's been very successful. It's cut down the time to produce dashboards by a huge amount.
And every single one of our clients gets a dashboard.
Everyone.
Well,
So we have like some field services clients that don't necessarily get dashboards because they have their own internal stuff that they do and they don't care about our dashboards. But if you're a service desk client, you definitely get. Yeah. Everybody gets the same dashboard. We actually have 5 that are standard that. Once you sign up with us and you start having data flow in, it will just automatically populate those dashboards. And then it's just a matter of getting you access to them and things like that.
Sweet. Yeah. Dashboards.
And Quick's a great tool. It's not our first dashboarding tool that we've ever used. We've had other dashboarding tools in the past, and we actually just switched dashboarding into Quick a year and a half ago, and prior to that we were using a company called Brightgauge. I am really pleased with QuickSight. I think it's one of Amazon's better products. It wasn't originally designed to be a dashboarding tool. It was originally designed to be an analytics tool, and then they added dashboarding features over time, and then they're working towards parity with something like a Microsoft Power BI or something, or Tableau or something like that. They're not there yet, but they're getting there, and they're doing a lot of very interesting things.
I've never met anybody more passionate about dashboards.
Listen,
I know everything about dashboards. We talked about dashboards for 7 minutes right there, I think.
It's so funny. I just had a conversation earlier with somebody else about this. My first job in the tech industry was in data.
Yeah.
And I've worked on the IT side where it's like deploy Microsoft Office, and I despise that kind of stuff. I don't know how to fix laptops. I don't want to know how to fix laptops. But if you ask me anything about data or data storage or data management or data analytics, the whole data science field is where my passion really is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, since your passion is in the data side, tell me about a little bit the AI Readiness Assessment and how data is related to that. You're coming into people, giving them a consulting services to tell them if their structure, their processes can handle an AI tool being strapped to the front end of whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
How does data relate to that? I'm sure it's overwhelming, the amount of data you get in one single assessment, but tell me about what the AI Readiness Assessment is.
This idea came from a lot of our clients. When we first start our integrations with them, we realize exactly the state of what we're dealing with. Their knowledge is fragmented. There's multiple versions of the same thing. Maybe we're supposed to be integrating with some kind of back-end database, and then so we have to deal with whatever state their database is in. We also have to deal with all of their processes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that go into, is an AI product going to be successful? And we've gotten to the point in this journey that we can kind of tell in advance what kind of work it's going to take to get one of our clients up and running into any given AI product.
Is there a specific AI product that people are trying to get into?
Right now, we're focused on voice products. So this would be something along the lines of an interactive voice assistant, a virtual assistant.
Which is also something that we do.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It is actually our primary thing that we do. Okay. Is we and when we started thinking about every time we integrate a client, we always do. For some reason, the word is escaping me, but where you go back and you review how you did over the course of a project. There's a sprint word for it that for some reason is escaping me. But essentially, you're live now, and we want to know internally, did we do a good job onboarding you? Were there mistakes? Were there things we could do better, et cetera, et cetera? So
your own kind of assessment.
Yeah. So we were doing this on one of our clients, and we realized that earlier on, we should have probably made it a little more clear what kind of effort it was going to take to get this to where they wanted it to be. And that sort of led into this idea of these assessments. Now, there are currently on the market tons of assessments that you can do. Some of them, most of them, especially the free ones, are self-assessments. So self-assessments are good if your only goal is to raise awareness within your organization. So for instance, I'm some kind of leader in the company. I want to deploy AI, but nobody in the company is thinking about it. And I want them to start thinking about what it's going to take to actually deploy AI. You can do a self-assessment, and that will get the conversation going. Now, a self-assessment, though, is only as good as...
It's very biased.
Yeah, it is.
I'm great at
very
this.
biased.
Oh, yeah, I could be really good at this.
Our processes are great.
Yeah.
You know, our knowledge is great. So that's one type of assessment. Another kind of assessment that you can get in the market right now is a paid assessment from a consultant, from a consulting firm. Those tend to be, A, they tend to be six figures. B, they tend to be designed to sell you a thing at the end of that consulting engagement.
Because they're consultants.
Correct.
They're going to set you up to assess you in a way that kind of feeds them a little bit at the end when they refer you into business.
And they're going to give you a 200-page document that no one's ever going to fully read or understand.
And how long does that process take for one of those?
If it could take months. It could take weeks. It depends on the size. It depends on exactly what the end goal is. But they typically don't tend to be a very fast process.
No.
Because, to be frank, the longer it takes, the more the consulting hours build up and everything else. So,
how long does it take for us to do an AI readiness assessment?
So our idea was different. We saw that somebody needs to come in, step in, and be kind of the adult in the room. Is kind of the thought process behind this.
The unbiased adult.
Correct. So what we do is we know, I don't have to learn every single aspect of your entire company to be able to tell you that there are some things that you could be doing right now so that in the future, whenever you are ready for AI, it makes the thing easier. And thinking about that, we realized that we could actually break it out into some specific categories. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, the very first category is always going to be your knowledge base. Whether everything lives or dies by your knowledge base. Because what's happening is the AI is going to be referencing that knowledge base tons of times per day, and even small errors will compound over time. Mm-hmm. So the state of your knowledge base, and what I mean by that is it clear who's responsible for updating it? Is it actually getting updated? When a knowledge article is no longer accurate, is there somebody in the company that is designated to change what is in that knowledge article? We handle this at Netfor by having an entire knowledge management division. They have knowledge writers, and they're fantastic. They've been doing it for 30 some odd years. They've got the process nailed. But knowledge is always going to be the very first one. And then it is a matter of your data scheme. So this doesn't always mean a database, but typically an easy offhand way of thinking about this is basically your database. If we have to reference your database and there's no indexes built, or there's no clear schema built, or this or that, or you're using, in some cases I've seen somebody is still using like SQL 2012.
What's that?
Which is a very old version of SQL. There's like 4 or 5 version updates, and every update, especially for something like SQL, is very important because they introduce completely new concepts that never existed before. So if you're running a SQL 2012 instance, I can't use some of the commands that I would normally use if you're using a newer version.
Yeah.
So the state of your data is very important, understanding where it is and how it sits. Mm-hmm. Then you have to think about the processes that your company use. So if somebody comes to you and says, how do I do X? And your answer is, oh, Bob in accounting knows how to do that. You are not ready for AI. Let's just put it that way. Like, that's a really easy way to understand the concept of processes.
Yeah. And some processes may be broken by employees going rogue and using their own tools without
100%.
their bosses or boss's knowledge.
Yeah. Traditionally, before AI, we would call this shadow IT. And shadow IT is something that's been around since the dawn of time. You're never going to completely get rid of shadow IT. Nowadays, it's shadow AI. It is, I'm an analyst, or I'm an engineer or something, and my company has not formally introduced any AI tools for me to use. There are tons of free tools out there that are excellent at these things. Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, goes on and on and on. I'm going to start using those tools, but now I'm doing it without the company's knowledge, and sometimes that doesn't always work out great, especially if I'm like an engineer or a software developer. The chances of me accidentally putting something into Claude that it really shouldn't have access to is very high. And we've also seen plenty of stories in the news lately where Claude has done things that were completely unintentional. So if I'm a software engineer working for your company and you have given me no AI tools, I theoretically could give Claude access to my workspace. That's not something I would recommend, but I could theoretically do it. And now when Claude gets access to my workspace, it can execute commands that I never asked it to execute. We've seen that happen. So providing a way for your employees to safely access AI within nice, tight guardrails is becoming more and more important. To try to eliminate as much of that shadow AI as you possibly can.
But it'll never fully be gone.
No, I don't think so.
Nobody
It's and the funny thing is my boss uses ChatGPT and has for a while now. And ChatGPT is great. There's nothing wrong with it. I prefer Claude. I like Claude's models better. I think it's better reasoning, et cetera, et cetera. So I was trying to talk to him about switching over to Claude, and we had this conversation, and he said it's a lot like switching banks at this point. I have a lot of context built into my ChatGPT conversations. It has a lot of history that it can reference when it's responding to me, just like I have like a lot of auto bills on my bank account. Switching from one bank to another bank is a giant pain in the butt.
Oh yeah.
Switching from one AI to another AI can be the same.
I get it. I made the switch to Claude about a year ago. Around a year ago probably, and I think it thinks a little bit more strategically and gives me a little bit more in-depth data when if I want to use GPT for something like writing or creative or something quick or personal, I'll always ask GPT.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of where I am nowadays too. If I'm speaking of my other hobby that you brought up.
I forgot about the hobby.
I picked up miniature painting like Warhammer. I started with Dungeons and Dragons, actually, minis, and then I moved into Warhammer because Warhammer is much more expensive, and I wanted to get good before I started paying the big boy dollars.
Is Warhammer a game? I'm unfamiliar.
Warhammer 40,000. It's not just a game. It's like books, and it's a video game, and there's movies, and Henry Cavill's going to be doing an Amazon live-action series and an animated series. Warhammer's like a big thing. And I've always liked the lore. It's also a tabletop game. I've never played the tabletop game. I don't necessarily want to play the tabletop game. But to play the game, you have to have these little miniatures, and they come in you have to put them together, glue them together, and then paint them. And there's kind of a whole subculture of painting them to the point where they look extremely realistic. And you can like build little dioramas to put them in a scene. It's a whole big thing. I needed a new hobby, and I've always been interested in the Warhammer lore and the movies and the video games. So I thought, why not? I'll pick it up.
Sweet. How many have you painted so far?
I'm on my 6th Warhammer mini. I don't want to like geek out or anything, but there's a lot of different.
You've geeked out every single episode about everything we talk about.
There's a lot of different like factions and alien races and everything else, and there's one race that's essentially space elves, and they're the ones that I like the most because they have the most interesting background lore, in my opinion. And so I went out and I bought a bunch of miniatures of them, and I'm gonna paint them.
How long does each one take?
I mean, it depends on total number of hours. I'm not very good, and I just started. So total number of hours, I would say 6 to 8.
Dang. How big are they?
25 millimeters, 28 millimeters, 32 millimeters.
Okay.
They're all, I think the biggest ones probably make it about that big.
Okay.
But they have really small, intricate details built into the models. And so painting them, you want to go slow. And
have you ever heard of a paint by numbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever done one?
You know what's funny is my daughter bought me, you can take a picture, just a normal picture, and send it into a company, and they'll turn it into a paint by numbers thing.
Yes.
So my daughter sent me one a couple of years ago that was me and my wife, a picture of her. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
We did it too. And there were 36 different colors. There were like 9 different shades of green. And as soon as I would get done doing the 6, I would move on to the next color, and then I'd see a ton of different 6s that I totally missed. It took us probably a year to finish.
Yeah.
It took so long. There were so many small details.
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
100%.
It's insane.
And the funny thing is, I've also like, for years my wife would have like, here's 9 different shades of red lipstick or whatever, and I never understood why she wanted 9 different shades of reds. But now that I'm painting, I need 9 different shades of red to achieve the effect. So I'm starting to kind of understand the color part of it.
The different hues, different shades of all the same color.
Yeah.
Blue is blue to me still. Just that card's blue.
Okay. You can cut this if you want. I don't care. When you close your eyes, do you see a picture of things in your head?
No.
Okay, so
No.
I
see dark.
Like, even if I tell you picture a blue elephant, you can't conjure an image of a blue elephant in your. Okay, so lots of people can.
Okay, who can do that?
I
feel like that's a magic trick.
So that apparently it's called.
You can do that?
I cannot.
Oh, okay.
It's called aphantasia. Normal people are supposed to be able to do that. Like the majority of people on Earth, when they close their eyes, they can conjure an actual image in their head.
No blue elephant.
I'm not able to do that at all. So when I cannot, like if I get a figurine that I want to paint, I have to have a picture of what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine in my head, oh, I want to change it and make it this color, or change it and make it that color. I'm not
can imagine what it's going to look like with a green hat versus a red hat.
I can't. Yeah. I have to paint it in order to see it.
I don't know anybody that's been able to do that.
My wife does, and she's
Is she just saying that though? So
no, she's amazing at her very first mini she ever painted is so much better than anything I've ever done. Yeah. It was like embarrassing for, like she's good. In 6 months she'll be a pro at this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next Rembrandt.
So it apparently like people can hear music in their head when they think of a song, or they can.
I'm 0 for 2 on all these magic tricks.
Yeah, they can conjure a smell that they're familiar with. I can't do any of those things.
I don't know if we're the outlier. I feel like they're the outlier.
Well, we have the name and they don't. Yeah. It's called aphantasia when you can't do it, and it's just called being normal when you can.
Okay, I'm gonna look into this, and we're gonna figure out where we lie. We were on.
Oh yeah.
We were on processes. We just got done with processes. So the fourth element of this AI Readiness Assessment.
That'd be intelligence. So,
intelligence.
And in this instance, intelligence, a good way of thinking about this is if a client ever comes to you, regardless of what you sell or what process or what service you offer or whatever, if a client ever comes to you and says, hey, how many X of Y did I do last month? And you can't immediately answer that question. This is about so if you think back to how important data is, this intelligence is about understanding that data.
And deciphering it and being able to explain it to people
100%.
in a way easier way.
A really good way of thinking about this is VoIP systems. So we use internally at Netfor, we use a VoIP system called NICE, N-I-C-E, or NICE in Contact. And in the past, we've used like Five9, and we're looking at maybe going with AWS Contact, and there's a lot of different VoIP services out there. It handles phone calls. You would think that the data is very similar when you go from one VoIP to another, and that is absolutely 100% not correct. When we moved from Five9 to NICE, it took us months to figure out what NICE was telling us, because they might name something slightly different.
It's like a different language.
On the back end, if they're giving us a calculated field, I need to know what that calculation is that they use to derive that number.
Yeah.
Because it may not be the same as what we traditionally use internally. So think about...
It's like cells in Excel.
Yeah. So think about, if I say average hold time. So how long did our agents, what is the average of how long they placed a caller on hold? There's 2 completely legitimate ways of calculating that derive wildly different answers. So one is you take the total number of hold minutes and you divide it by the total number of minutes of all phone calls.
Okay. Not the total number of calls received?
Or that's fine, yeah. So you take the total number of hold minutes and divide it by the total number of calls that were received. Okay. And that's going to give you a perfectly accurate, true to the name average hold time. But another way of doing it is take the average number of hold minutes and divide it only by the number of calls that were placed on hold. Also a completely legitimate way of calculating that, but comes up with a way different number.
Yeah.
So it depends on, there's a lot of things that are exactly like that when you start looking at data. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ambiguity, there's a lot, and you need to be very, very specific when you're dealing with AI because it does not necessarily deal with ambiguity very well. It might decide to do it one way this time and a completely different way the next time, and you don't want that kind of thing happening. So intelligence is about understanding your data, understanding what it is, how it works, not just at a surface level. You can't just tell me, oh, that's the average hold time. If you can't explain the calculation behind that, you do not have the level of intelligence that you need to deploy AI.
Boom. Amen.
Yes. The next one's integrations. Integrations is big, because when it comes right down to it, it doesn't matter what you're trying to integrate in. Almost invariably, it means you're going to be dealing with some kind of API. Mm-hmm. APIs are notoriously bad for some companies and just okay for others, and it's very few and far between where APIs are well built. And well documented. And the documentation piece is generally the worst aspect of it. Mm-hmm. APIs tend to be as good as the person that was building it. There are very few standards that are industry-wide. We claim to have standards, but then nobody follows them. And we've got like 100 different standards at this point. And even with, if you ever hear somebody talk about MCP or multi-context protocol, that's really just a fancy way of saying an API. Everything drives back to an API. So integrations is about understanding that ahead of time. What you don't want to happen is you're 30-40% of way deploying an AI project, and now it comes time to integrate into some other product that you have deployed, your email system or your ticketing system or whatever. We needed to interact with that in order to do a thing, and that's when we discovered that there is no documentation for your API. And so it's a black box that we just bang at it until we figure it out, and that can take a long time. Mm-hmm. So thinking about that ahead of time, understanding what systems you want to integrate into or need to integrate into, and then starting to build that documentation ahead of time. That is going to make your AI deployment way more successful.
Yeah, and way easier for when you come in and tell them, thank you for the documentation.
Yes.
You just shaved 32 an hour off of our time together, and now I have a better, clearer picture. And so do you. Yeah. Everybody should have that kind of at the ready, especially if they own that process. But with APIs, when I connected my Outlook to my Claude like 3 weeks ago, that seemed just really simple. I just clicked a couple buttons and
well, it's because some engineer at Claude has already gone through all of the hard process for you, and has just boiled it down to a few clicks.
Thank you.
That's essentially what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So if we, if we build an IVA for you and we needed to create a ticket and put the summary of the conversation within the ticket and all of this stuff, we need to know what those fields are, what the different API endpoints are. We need all of that documented.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just trial and error, and that can be, part of a good portion of AI deployments are failing because the deployment process is taking so much longer than they budgeted for, either capacity or money or time or whatever. This is a perfect example of what you can do ahead of time to narrow that window, that deployment time. If you walk into an integration with me and hand me really clean documents of your API, that's going to save me a massive amount of time and effort.
Yeah.
And we can be more accurate at it. And our philosophy that we've kind of settled on is if we can be deterministic, we want to be. Because that way we can guarantee it'll happen the same way every time. So what I mean by that is if going back to the example, if we need to open a ticket in your ticketing system through our IVA, we don't want the LLM trying to do that, right? It might get it right. We can give it the documentation to your API. It can write code. It can execute code. It probably will get it right, but not all the time. What would be better is I write some code that I tell the LLM to execute my code, and now I know it's going to happen the same way
Every time.
Every time.
Yeah. It's got to be perfect code, though.
Yes. And then once you get past the integrations, the next thing to think about is your team,
That's
your
important.
people.
Yeah.
My suggestion, and generally speaking, it's a lot like data governance. And when data governance became a really big thing in the 90s, you always pretty much had to have somebody somewhere in your company that was championing data governance. Most of the time, it wasn't an entire department. Some companies have data governance departments, but most of the time it's not. It's just a couple of people that are championing the concept of data governance in order to raise awareness, and that's usually the very first thing that you have to do when you're trying to do something like this.
Herding cats.
Yes. AI is the same way. So having somebody on your team that is the AI champion is generally my very first go-to recommendation.
That person's probably going to be the one spearheading this initiative and asking for
100%.
this assessment as well.
Yeah, 100%. And what that person needs to understand is the benefits of what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say exactly what the benefits are because it depends on what you're using this for. But as an example, you want to grow your company, but you can't afford to hire new people. You have a staff of 10 people that answer your phone calls, and they're already missing 20% of the phone calls, and you want to do something to get more phone calls. So instead of hiring more people, what you can do is deploy an IVA to take all of those really easy phone calls away from the 10 people that you already have, which frees them up to handle the harder issues, and then they can handle more volume.
The human escalated issues
Right.
that require human touch, something that IVA, the intelligent virtual agent.
Yes, or assistant either.
Or assistant, agent or assistant.
Yeah.
And we sell those by the agent. We sell an IVA to clients actively.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. That is actually the number one thing that we're doing right now in the AI space is IVAs. It's just such an obvious use case for LLMs.
Yeah.
Even back when ChatGPT first came out, I set up a little demo of one of our clients' knowledge base, and all I did, this was before it was even called RAG, but all I did was I just copy and pasted a couple of knowledge articles into ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And then I told GPT, use this information as context to answer any questions that follow. And then I asked it a bunch of questions, and it correctly answered all of those questions. So it's been, the concept has been around for a while, but it is maturing at a rate that I don't think anybody really expected.
Yeah.
And there are a ton of benefits to using. I go back to me building the QuickSight dashboards. I can take a 6-week project now and I can get it done in a day.
That's amazing.
And that is exactly the kind of efficiencies that we're looking to drive with AI.
Yeah, and those tools that people are coming to us to assess if they're ready for, you want to do it right the first time. I have a stat here that says, I think it's 80% of AI initiatives fail in the first year or fail to deliver any positive ROI or result. Mostly because of the failures. The failures trace back to bad data, no defined objectives, and change management breakdowns.
Yeah.
Those are the three big areas.
And really, when you think about those three, you said change management breakdown. So generally speaking, what that means is something in your environment has changed, but your knowledge base wasn't updated.
Knowledge base will, it's not never going to change, but people can come and go. People leave companies all the time. Right. The way processes are structured, move around, but the knowledge could stay the same. So
absolutely,
yeah,
and that is
breakdown.
And I do want to go back to something else you said though about getting it right the first time. You have to be careful with statements like that because what I would definitely tell everybody to understand is there's going to be a lot of iterations. It would be nearly impossible for me to deploy something that is in a perfect state. Because as soon as it hits production, somebody somewhere is going to do something that I wasn't anticipating. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it goes. I would think of it more like I hire a new employee. I do my best to train that employee to do his job before I start having him do his job. But once he starts doing his job, he's going to learn more than he ever did in training by the real world stuff.
Yes.
AI is the exact same way. If you build an IVA and expect it to be perfect out of the box, you're going to be severely disappointed. You need to understand that the more testing we do, the better it's going to be. So there is a lengthy testing process. But as soon as we push it out especially if you're just random people in the world are calling it, somebody somewhere is going to do something that you weren't anticipating, and you're going to get a response that you may not want. And so tweaking it over time, those first 90 days, I would say, I would expect quite a few iterations to happen, quite a few tweaks. You're going to be like, even down to the point where, sometimes its voice isn't quite the culture we want. You start thinking about where we are in the market today, and it's really no longer about AI voices. It's really about AI personas, because it's not just the actual tone of the voice that's coming through. It's also the pacing. It is
personality.
All of them have personalities, all of them. And you can build any personality that you really want to. And so figuring out what your culture is and finding the personality that matches that culture might take a couple of tries. There's some things that are obvious. We're not going to have it have an Australian accent if you're based out of Tennessee. It doesn't make any sense. But even so, over time, we're going to understand better your processes. We're going to understand the kinds of questions that you get, and we're going to be able to tweak it over time and make it better and better.
All because you built that awesome dashboard that surfaces these things.
Yeah, and we do have, we absolutely do. So the way we approach dashboards is we figure out, a way to display to you your outcomes. What that means to you is different for every client, unfortunately. It makes my job hard. But understanding, for this client, their main concern is booking new appointments. Okay, so I'm going to build you a funnel that shows you calls come in, and at every stage, here's the number of callers that you're losing. And then sometimes that number is 0. So for instance, it's going to collect their name, and then it's going to collect their email address, and then it's going to ask them a question, and then it's going to do this, and it's going to do that.
And every one of the drop-offs for the funnel going down until the action that we want to happen is executed.
So if I am booking appointments for doctors, and I see that all of the drop-off is at the stage where they are selecting the location, or at the stage where they are selecting the doctor, or at the stage where they're selecting the date and the time. What we can derive for you is you would get more bookings if you had the doctor be available during these times, or you would get more bookings if you had another doctor. Sometimes we can show you the value of the missed appointments. And when that value rises high enough that it makes sense to go ahead and hire a whole new doctor so that you stop missing those appointments, those are the kinds of insights that we can derive for you from this stuff and show you. And beyond just things like average handle time and service level and things like that. Of course, we also do that.
Crowdsourced information for something your front desk staff is not trained to do. Nobody's trained to collect all these different calls, and when people say those things.
And if I'm just having conversations all day with people and I'm not taking a massive amount of notes, I'm going to forget that, hey, I had 12 people call today and they all wanted July 9th. And, that's information that gets lost to the ether. But since we record all of these, when we open a ticket, we do a summary of the conversation, and then we do the conversation. That way we can always trace back things like hallucinations or whatever, or intents or whatever. So we have this data available to us, and I'm a big data guy, so it's fun for me to be able to walk people through and show them, hey, if you did this and that, it would mean this and that.
Yes. Awesome.
And we always back our statements with data.
Yes.
Always.
Have to.
Yes.
And the last part of the assessment.
Governance, and that
Round
is once I deploy this AI product for you, it's not a black box that you walk away from forever.
The champion has to own it.
Yes, it is something that takes, like just any software that you deploy within your environment. It's going to have updates,
Yeah.
it's going to have changes, it's going to have new features, it's going to need this, it's going to need that. So you need to understand walking into it that somebody is going to have to own this product on your side.
Yeah. And how long does this whole thing take? Give us the skinny on how long it
Typically
takes.
3-4 hours.
Okay.
It's not a huge engagement. It is not built to dive in and give you advice on how to run your company. We are strictly looking at what is the state of affairs if I wanted to deploy an AI within your organization today. Where would it fail? Why would it fail? What can we do now so that in the future, when you do deploy AI, it is successful?
And what you mentioned, a lot of those things that's provided after the assessment when you give them their. It's not a scorecard. You give them their assessment back.
I mean, if you called it a scorecard, I wouldn't be offended, but it is essentially because there are, in the end, I'm going to take each of these categories and we're going to basically outline them for you.
Yeah. Are some weighted heavier than others?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Knowledge and data are always going to be the two most important things.
Right.
Knowledge, everything else in your organization could be perfect, but if your knowledge is failing, you're not ready, AI ready. It's as simple as that. I mean, we've learned that again and again and again. If you don't have good knowledge, you're not going to have a good time trying to deploy AI.
Yeah.
You might as well just call up ChatGPT and have them do whatever. It's going to be just as frustrating.
Yeah.
And the assessment that you are delivered typically is going to have a plan of action. Here are the different categories. Here is how you rate in these different categories. Here is, your weaknesses and your strengths. If you want to deploy AI, here are the things that you should do before you start deploying AI. And like I said earlier about being the adult in the room, a lot of the conversations that I'm going to have are, you're not ready for AI.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, don't do this.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. It's going to fail. Don't spend the money. Instead, spend the money on these things, get them done, and then build your AI.
Yeah.
I'm
sure that's not what people want to hear, but it's what they need to hear.
Yeah, and a lot of times it is exactly what they need to hear. And, having somebody like me come in and say you're not ready for AI, to be perfectly honest, can take a lot of the pressure off of these leaders that are being pressured to deploy AI.
Yeah. Because they can go back to their boss and say, here is why we shouldn't, and here's a professional assessment.
Yeah, absolutely, and that, and I'm very cognizant of I'm also I'm the CTO, so I'm very cognizant of the pressures that we're under and the kind of things that we have to do to drive the bottom line and things like that, and I get it, but what we have seen again, and all of the statistics are showing, is that if you just dive in because your boss is telling you to, it's probably going to fail, and you're going to waste a lot of money doing it.
Yeah. That's a lot of information that you've shared with us on the whole initiative. So I'm glad this is launched. It's something new that we're doing. So I'm very excited to see how it goes. But
me too. And I've spent most of my career talking to people somehow or another.
That's why you're really good to have on here.
Yeah, and it's fun to talk to people and learn their businesses and learn how we can help them, and sometimes we can't help them.
Yeah.
And I don't mind having that conversation with you. It doesn't bother me. I'm not here to criticize. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to state facts. Here is where you are. Here's where you need to be. And here's where the gap is.
Is AI consulting a big thing right now?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And frankly, it's not big enough.
Okay.
If there were more of us out there doing consulting on this, those numbers would be much smaller. 80% of AI deployments failing means that most of those people simply weren't ready for AI yet. Sometimes we also see that they were probably ready for AI and they just deployed it in a really poor way.
Yeah.
And that is also something that we can help them with.
Awesome. Well, I think this is going to close it out for us, man.
It's a lot.
Episode 4. It is a lot.
We're never going to hit 40.
46 minutes. That's insane. I thought we were going to get it done in 30, but I'm glad we discussed all this. So thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blast. I love being here.
I'm glad you do. Well, Thank you very much again.
Anytime.